Ms. Byram, may I have roll call, please?
Yes, Mrs. Anderson,
Here.
Mrs. Dawson,
Here.
Mrs. Harrington,
Here.
Mrs. Quintern,
Here.
Mr. Rickett.
Here.
Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the presence of a quorum.
Yes, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Hornick, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No, ma'am, I don't have any, but I think Ms. Harrington, if I want to pass it to you, I think you had a recommendation.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Hornick.
Ma'am.
I would request to amend the agenda tonight to remove item 2C from action items and just put it under board member items or another more appropriate place. We have not had the opportunity to have public comment on these issues tonight, and I would like to have discussion and then bring it back at our next meeting for public discussion and action if appropriate.
Do I have,
Chair, I would propose a substitute motion, only because we've had ample time now. We've had multiple meetings in which these have been on the agenda, and I would like to move forward with the exception of pulling off BDDH until we have hopefully an opinion from the Attorney General's office regarding public participation at school board meetings. So to keep the agenda as presented, however, putting in a motion to remove policy BDDH from the agenda.
I would prefer not to pick one and separate. I think Ms. Harrington's point is extremely valid. While we have moved it a number of times, absolutely correct, we've also had some unforeseen things that have occurred that caused us to move it. We canceled a meeting, then we had some other things. I believe we can wait one more week and have 2 more weeks and have the ability for the community to give input if they would like, and take it up at the next meeting.
I would be fine with either one, so may I have a motion, or do you have anything you would like to add?
I was just going to say I have received several community comments, and we've had several here, but I don't have an issue with delaying it if that would make people feel better.
I just want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to participate in the process, so.
Well, I
would
think
appreciate
they
that.
have had opportunity, but at the same time, do we need any of these policies to move forward on the school level?
I don't believe there are any here that hold up our abilities. So I think the ones that we needed, which were particularly student attendance in particular, we addressed that to make sure that we had that at the beginning. So I'm comfortable. I'm definitely comfortable. I just want to make sure we talk about having discussion about them tonight, or, okay.
Yes.
And so,
Go ahead
as
forward
far
with
as to answer your
discussion.
question, Ms. Quintern, yes, we are okay if none of these are addressed in the immediate. In fact, some of the ones that could potentially draw more consternation actually, really, it doesn't go into effect until a year after the DOE redoes standards, particularly in health and PE. So those are particularly not right upon us as having to need immediate action.
Okay.
So IGAF, IGAG, those are ones that have some recommended changes within the health and PE, the health content. And if my reading of these is correct, and I believe it is, they actually would go into effect a year after the VDOE adopts new standards, and I believe, Renee, that's set for 2027. They could certainly be moved up. That's been known to happen recently, where 2027 becomes 2024. But at this time, there is some grace time there. So those ones in particular are not incredibly time sensitive.
But if we were to change it to be a opt-in, opt-out, whatever option we choose to move forward, that would be implemented this year, correct?
We would have to, as soon as a new policy is adopted, we would have to implement it immediately. That's correct.
Okay. Madam Chair, I defer to you.
I would second Ms. Harrington's motion.
It wasn't a motion, it was
Oh, I thought
Request.
she did.
it was a request, but.
Yes, I would like to make that a motion. I would like to respectfully ask the chair and Dr. Hornick and the board to agree to delay this action item. Please, let's go ahead and have a good, robust discussion. Let's allow public to come in and comment in an open public forum at our next meeting and go forward as necessary.
May I have a second?
Second, with clarification that public has had opportunity to comment, but I still second the motion.
I would disagree with that, but thank you.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on. Action items. Dr. Hornick, over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. This evening we have some field trip requests, and I would like to begin with our Orange County High School FFA. So please feel free to join us, wonderful young folks and sponsors.
Hello, my name is Eli Wiles. I'm the president of Orange County FFA chapter.
Hi, I'm Olivia Mailing. I am the Orange County FFA Sentinel.
Behind me are our two advisors, Mr. Wise and Ms. Dotson. We're here to request that you allow us to go to Indianapolis, Indiana for our national FFA trip. This trip is probably actually without a shadow of a doubt, the most crucial and most important field trip of the year for us as officers. It improves our leadership capabilities and our understanding of how to be better student leaders and how to participate in the student body, as well as it widens our ability to get out there in the world as in terms of jobs and finding careers and finding interests and working with other people, getting out of our comfort zones and learning to appreciate what we have and using what we know to do better. This is an overnight trip, as you know, so this is why we're here to request your approval. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them because I don't quite know what y'all would like to know about it or what you don't know about it. So if you have any questions, let me know if it helps you understand better.
I would also like to add, in this field trip, we will be given the valuable opportunity to attend workshops that will help us with leadership skills, as well as our advisors who will also get to attend these workshops. And we have the ability to go to educational tours.
And on top of that, there's more officers than just what we're representing today are attending the field trip. We had some unforeseen events happen, and so some officers could not attend tonight, and we apologize for that.
So just reading over, I believe it says 3 students. Is that correct? And what was the criteria on how to get to go on the field trip? Is there not just 3? Is there more than 3?
There's 3. There's the biggest problem is either money or parents. Not that the students don't want to go, but the other thing is that even if only 3 of us go, what we bring back from that trip to teach others and to improve our chapter, because it's me as president, it's my job to oversee the other officers and teach them what I know, so that we can all improve as a unit instead of just individuals. So as we do improve individually, we also improve together. So even if 3 of us can go and bring back valuable information that can better our chapter and our community, that's really important to us.
So I think Mrs. Anderson was getting at the 3 were chosen because of your leadership role in the FFA. Is that how the 3 of you were chosen as the ones to go?
It's by choice, so the students choose to go. So it just depends on their availability, whether they play sports or if their parents say yes or no. Because like I said, it's an overnight trip out of state. Some parents are just against that or don't, So it's really up to the students' parents and whether or not they have other things they have to attend to, sports, school-wise. Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's not a competitive process or an application that they have to go through. It just,
No, ma'am.
the parents' approval is the
We'd like the whole team to go, ideally. We want as many people to go as we can.
Thank you, and thank you for the question.
All officers get an opportunity. It's just up to them to decide whether or not they have the responsibility to go.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move to approve this overnight and out-of-state field trip requests, both of them as presented.
I would second that.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Could we also request
Thank you
maybe
for your
a
time.
report back to the board when you come back?
Say one more time.
Would you please be so kind as to come back and present some information to the board when you get done?
Yes, ma'am. We love that.
All right,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all very much. And if you guys would like to head out, you're free to go. Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it. And perfect, right as we speak, our second one this evening is an overnight field trip request. It will be led by Ms. Patera, who is entering the space. And this is a this is an excellent one as well. One of our high school interns who has some interest in public service, politics, etc. So, Ellen, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, board. Thank you for listening to me tonight. So I have one student, London Struther, who is interested in studying law. She's actually interested in corporate law. And so she's going to be studying next semester. And so I'm trying to give her 2 opportunities to see bills becoming laws, where laws begin. So she's going to be going to the U.S. Capitol, hopefully, this week. And then she's going to Richmond State Capitol next semester. It's not an overnight, it's just a day of field trip. So we'll be leaving here after first block, driving to DC, touring around the Capitol, meeting with Abigail Spanberger and one of her staff members who is I think it's 2013 OCH grad. So that's fun to have that connection. We'll have a tour of the Capitol. Hopefully we'll have the chance to either go onto the floor or into the gallery above to be able to watch Congress in session. And then we will drive home.
And I think it was already approved. So I figure we'll just have Ellen talk about it.
Oh, okay.
She approved.
So great job, Ellen.
Oh, sorry.
You did all that for
Did I
something that
say-
was approved.
Oh, okay, great. Anything else?
Carry
Any
on.
questions?
excited about it.
Well, thank you. I'm excited. It's a great opportunity. for us
Congratulations.
to- Yeah, thank you for approving it. Appreciate it.
Ms. Patera, I would
Yes, ma'am.
also request maybe the student come back and provide a short presentation to the board. I think this is an amazing opportunity for the student. I think it's an amazing opportunity for classmates in our community to see and hear from her when she's done. And so I'm just respectfully
Sure.
requesting to bring her back.
Would you like to hear from her after this one trip or after she goes to both the U.S. Capitol and the state Capitol?
Probably, I will defer to you, but I would think maybe one time would be sufficient.
Okay, that's
right.
great. And you will hear, at the end of the school year, you will all be invited to hear all of our interns give presentations about their experiences this year. So that'll be at the end of April.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
look forward to sharing that with you all. Any other questions? Great.
Thank you.
Well, maybe some of you hopefully will be at our career day tomorrow. I know Mr. Rickett will, maybe others will. You can talk about that, Dr. Hornick, if you'd like, or unless you want me to, since I'm already up here.
Sure. Yes, and the board members are aware. Tomorrow, 10 to 2, we sent out a reminder last week. But if you want to talk a little bit about it, and I know it came out of our business advisory group to do it. So.
Yes, the business advisory group suggested that we have a career day. So we're targeting 6th graders since they're at the very beginning of making lots of decisions where they get to start selecting elective classes that they want to take that may project them into their future career. So we have 32 businesses coming tomorrow to the airport and to Booster Park. We are hoping for sunny skies tomorrow, but even if it rains, we're still going to have a great time because that's how we roll. So the students will be going around and visiting with the businesses, and they get a quick 10-minute hands-on activity that'll help them understand more about that business and potentially a career path for them. We have MITRE bringing drones. We have Germanna Community College bringing a simulator and also drones. We have Piedmont Power and Virginia Tractor bringing tractors. We have VDOT. The list goes on of really incredible businesses, small and large, that are coming to give to our kids a really, really neat hands-on experience. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. I'm excited too.
Okay, great. See you tomorrow. Any other questions while I'm up here? Thanks, y'all.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Ellen.
you.
Appreciate it. Next, under 2A, Mr. Rudder will come forward. We presented at our last meeting to some information about our custodial supplies contract. And this evening, we're seeking your approval to award the bid. Mr. Rudder?
Thank you, Dr. Hornick, Madam Chair, members of the board. If you have any questions, I believe I provide the information you'd asked for, Ms. Anderson.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much for that.
Very welcome.
Anybody have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the award contract for the division's custodial supplies to the supply room.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right. Moving down to superintendent's recommendation.
I'll say yes, ma'am. So we'll move down to 3A, and Ms. Ayler will come forward. And this is a request for a supplemental appropriation based on a grant that we have received that Susan and her team worked hard to get in and get approved. Susan, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. This is a $90,000 grant from the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, and it is to support our students in our division and our school mental health programs.
I know this would be well received. I've spoken to several special education teachers, and I think that this is an area of need of support from the board, and so I would be supportive of this, Madam Chair.
Any other questions?
No, I think that this is a great opportunity, again, to provide additional support for our students. So I would make a motion to approve this as presented.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Next, we will go to 4A, and wanted to share with the board our budget development calendar. And so these are the dates that we have worked up, and we are trying to lengthen the process and provide more opportunities for input and discussion. And so there will be a point of time in October where we will have a survey ready for the community so they can approach providing input via a survey. I'm also going to be hosting a budget roundtable that I will likely host in here. I'm hoping that numerous folks will attend, and we would have to move it to a larger venue. And at that meeting, my intent would be for the first 15 to 20 minutes to do the best that I can to give a high-level overview and understanding of how the very complex nature of school funding in Virginia works, how we are one of the last remaining 8 states that still use a staffing-based formula as opposed to other types, student-based or some type of hybrid model. I will talk about the local composite index. I will talk about standards of quality. I will talk about how when the governor or the General Assembly come out with pay raises for teachers and staff members, what that actually means for us, because we do not get the full funding. We do not get money to pay every teacher an additional 5%. So I will strategically walk the group through so they have an understanding. And then there will be a considerable portion of the evening that the participants will delve into an experiential exercise. They will suffer the pain a little bit of trying to make determinations about what goes into a budget and what doesn't, and trying to prioritize a laundry list of very relevant and true needs in a school division when not all of those can fit into the budget at one time. And so that will be an opportunity to engage directly. My goal will be to meet with all principals and all department leads by the time we get to early December. We have dedicated, and we will have a dedicated public comment on December 9th as an additional opportunity in the calendar year 2024 to bring forward the community, to bring forward thoughts about where they would like the budget to go and what their priorities will be. We will synthesize all of that information and bring forth, as we have in the past, a series of what we have now designated priorities based on what we know that we need, as well as where that is in line and where we are in alignment with the community and the needs. And then we will have a public comment section dedicated at the next open meeting on February 3rd for people to provide their thoughts and opinions on what they heard with respect to the budget priorities that were presented the week before. Our goal will be to present on February the 24th my proposed budget to the board, which would summarily be followed the next week with our required public hearing, which is essentially yet another dedicated public comment for people to explain or highlight their support or potentially lack thereof of what they heard from the proposed budget. And then we have established 2 dates in March that could be either a budget work session if it's needed, or the opportunity to convene as a board and ultimately approve the budget that we have so that we can get our budget to the Board of Supervisors in a timely fashion. They definitely like to have it sooner rather than later. It is, as you know, it is often a little bit tumultuous depending on how quickly or not the General Assembly is moving forward as far as their budget development and when they build calc tolls, et cetera, so that we actually know what our state revenues are going to be. But we will do our best to estimate. And so this is the calendar that we are going to follow this year. And I'm really excited in particular about the expanded opportunities for folks to provide input and for us to have a little bit more open discussion and build a little bit more understanding of how our budgeting process actually works, and where some of the difficulties we have relative to some of our neighboring school divisions with a host of factors, including the local composite index and a cost to compete adjustment that some of our neighboring school divisions are the beneficiary of, that we are not. And so it will be packed with some very relevant, and I will try to make it as high level as possible, not to drag everybody far down into the weeds, but it will be definitely an opportunity to engage with us on a level that likely has not occurred at a macro level. We certainly did it when we were doing strategic planning, where you had that level. And so trying to bring that level of engagement and dialogue between us and the administration and the community that we serve. So our goal is we would like to start promoting our campaign for budget development and enhanced transparency discussion. We'd like to start that tomorrow, and just wanted to bring this forward and see if there were any thoughts or concerns, or if everybody is okay with the method to the madness for this year's budget development.
I'd just like to commend you, Dr. Hornick, for taking this step. I think that's one of the biggest things I heard in the past year was it's such a process kind of shrouded from public view, or at least that was the perception.
Sure.
And I think this really helps bring it out into the open where we can ask questions. The public is welcome to ask questions, understand all of that crazy convoluted formula and LCI and everything that plays into it. I just think it's a wonderful step in the right direction, and I commend you for doing it.
Thank you very much, Ms. I think folks will be it will be a great discussion. It will be enlightening. You know, an example that I plan to use is, you know, we get SOQ funding for 14.62 first grade teachers, okay, because it's a formula. Well, I don't know who the 0.62 is going to be. And if we only employed 14.62 first grade teachers across the division, we would have 27, 28 first grade kids in a classroom. And so we need to employ 20 first grade teachers across the division so that our class sizes are manageable. So when you talk about funding, we get a portion of the funding for the 14.62 first grade teachers, and then we are on the hook for the rest, and then everybody who's not an SOQ. So it will be very enlightening to learn how the actual process goes, and learn that every time somebody says we're going to give X% pay raise, that means a considerably larger amount of money out of the local funding agency as well, because we do that does not come as a full amount. And so I'm really thanking Ms. Dawson. It's really the goal is to promote additional understanding and dialogue between us and the community, so there is the community can understand the things that we are facing when we're doing this, and we have an opportunity to hear directly about the priorities that the community has, since ultimately that is who we serve. So thank you very much. And then Dr. Honaker, I think next on the agenda is to have our secondary accreditation. And so I will let you take it away.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hornick. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board, for allowing us to come and present a continuation of what you heard a couple weeks ago from the elementary principals. Now, tonight we'll continue that discussion and share with you some of the great achievements that we have in our secondary schools, as well as some of the areas that we are still focused on and working on. So, Laura, you can go ahead. I won't go into a lot of detail. I think there you go. I was going to say, I think something's missing about the first two, but these are the state accreditation measures. And for secondary, it is the same as elementary for the student achievement, which I'll go into a little more detail on the next slide, and attendance. But in addition to that, at the high school, we have our graduation and dropout rates that count, as well as our college, career, and civic readiness index. You've probably heard it called CCCRI. So we'll go into a little bit more detail about that in just a moment. 100% of our 3 schools are accredited, so we have no schools that are not. These are the indicators that are used to measure our schools. Reading, math, science, and chronic absenteeism is the same as what you heard with the elementary. The graduation rate, we are looking at a benchmark of 88%. The dropout rate needs to be below 6, and the CCCRI at an 85%. And I'll talk more about that as we get to it, and Mr. Price will as well. So these levels are the same that you saw for elementary. This is how we are measured, and then this is the categories by which we are placed. Level 1, at or above, standard or sufficient improvement, or standard or sufficient improvement from level 2. A level 2 is near the standard or sufficient improvement from level 3, and then level 3 is below the standard, or performance at level 2 for more than 4 consecutive years. And then the different measures are down below. We use the same process, the state's defined process, and Dr. Wolfried talked about this when she presented, but all of our schools follow this each year. They conduct a needs assessment by looking at the data. They work with their teams at the school, and they go through that data. They get together to develop their plan. They work with not only the members of their leadership teams in their buildings, but also with the coordinators here at the division level, and we all work together to develop a school improvement plan. And then they have strategies within that plan that they implement throughout the year, and monitor that progress as we go. And then we're here before you tonight to talk about how it went last year with our plan. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Nick Sedano, the principal of Locust Grove Middle School.
Thank you, Dr. Honaker. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the board. I'm here to present our school quality indicators, our accreditation results, and our student learning outcomes from last school year. And so the data that we're going to present to you pertains to tests that were taken this previous spring, okay? And so this first slide here, this shows us our school quality indicators on the level 1, 2, 3 continuum. And the column to the left shows our academic achievement, and our school was level 1 in English, math, and science. However, when we look at our subgroups, which are our smaller categories of students, racial groups, economically disadvantaged students with disabilities, etc., we do hit level 2 in both English and math, and we'll go into that in a moment as to what makes that up. Finally, our chronic absenteeism is a level 1, which shows some great improvement, and we'll show that momentarily as well. So this slide right here, again, shows the percentage attained, not just level 1, 2, or 3, but the percentage attained in each of those subjects. And if it's a bright green, that means we were level 1 outright. If it's a shaded green, that means we showed 10% improvement, and therefore made the accreditation standard based on what was called R10, or 10% improvement from year over year. So in English, we had a 78% pass rate. Of course, the accreditation number is 75 that we're shooting for in English, and in math, that number is 70, and in math, we had a 75%, and these are total students. In science, we did hit a 10% increase year over year, so we're at 69% with a benchmark number of 70 that we're shooting for. We were close, but not quite there, and we will get there this year. And then chronic absenteeism, again, a 10% improvement year over year, and we sit at 16% of our students were chronically absent from school last year, and we'll look at where that came from to get some context in a moment. All right, these next several slides are going to require just a little bit of context for you. On the left, you see the accreditation academic achievement, and on the right, you see the annual academic achievement. Okay, and those are two different numbers for different years. So let me explain that. On the left, when determining accreditation, the state uses either a 3-year average or the highest score. Whichever is better is the number that they will give you. And if it makes it on the 3-year average, then you're accredited. If you make it on the 1 year but not on the 3-year, you're also fine. If you don't make it in either, you're not okay. So this, I want to look at the graph on the right, shows our year-over-year achievement results. I think that gives a better indicator of where our students are, performing at a given time, as opposed to the accreditation, which can sometimes get a little, it's a little less clear. So we can see in English, we did improve this past year from a 70% pass rate to a 78, taking us above that 75% threshold that we were looking for, and that's similar to where we were 2 years ago at a 76. But you can see the past 3 years, even though 2023 was below the 75, the 3-year average of a 77% is what allowed us to make it last year. But this year we had it outright with the pass rate. The next slide is going to show math in a similar way. It's a little less difference between the left and the right side, but our academic achievement in math this past year was a 75%, which was an increase from a 73% 2 years ago. I mean, sorry, that would have been 2 years ago, and then 3 years ago was 76. But the 3-year average was used 2 years ago in 2023, but past year, we were able to go on our raw number. And then here we have science. Science is where you can see the way the accreditation most affects with the 3-year average. On the left, the scores go 76%, 70%, 69%. Year over year, though, the way our students achieved, we went from a 59% to a 69% in science pass rate last year. So that was some hard work that took us there, but we need to continue to get those numbers up, and that's a issue statewide that schools are dealing with, and we're going to continue to push hard in our areas of science. So this slide here shows the specific subgroups where our school is performing at level 1, level 2, and level 3. So the areas that we need to target heavily this year are economically disadvantaged students in both subject areas, students of multiple racial groups in both subject areas, and students with disabilities. And students with disabilities being level 3, this is a make or break year for us to get that number up. And so we are working hard with our team to do so. On a similar vein, so that last one showed the level. This shows the actual percentage. I don't know if we can zoom in a little bit so the folks in the crowd can take a look at where we are and where we need to go. So, of course, in English, in all of those subgroups, we need to be at 75%, and in math, again, at 70%. So we have a 6% room for improvement at least in our multiple races, our economically disadvantaged, and then significant growth with students with disabilities needed. And then in math, we're 1 point off with multiple races, 2 points with economically disadvantaged, and again, our students with disabilities require substantial growth. Our chronic absenteeism, we're really pleased with the work, the results of the hard work of the school, at the school level team as well as the district team. I think it was an all hands on deck. There was a lot of pieces that came to helping this, but that trend line on that graph in that top right, I'm really proud of that sharp decrease. Chronic absenteeism peaked in the years following the COVID pandemic, and you can see the efforts to bring students back into the building are paying off, where we have a decrease from 27% nearly chronically absent 2 years ago to last year's 16.4%. So we want to continue to see that improving and moving in the right direction, and we have some plans in place that will help with that. So that's our school data. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we're breaking this into 4 areas. The first is chronic absenteeism. So with your help, we've revised an attendance policy which should help hold accountable families for sending children to school, and hopefully will result in greater transparency and clarity as to if a student needs to be in school or not. We've started an attendance challenge program where we're incentivizing specific weeks. We looked at data and identified specific weeks where our attendance was really poor, and we've made those attendance challenge weeks to challenge kids to be there. And if they meet those challenges, then they get rewards, and then if they meet all of them throughout the course of the year, it's a larger incentive. We continue to meet with our school-wide attendance team. We message and communicate it through all communications, the importance of being proud and present, and we're also offering plenty of outside of hours instruction so that students can make up those hours while they may not be in there, and we want them there and they must be there every day. The reality is that students miss time, and so outside of hours instruction is allowing us to make up some of that time and provide that instruction for students that are missing it. We are doubling down on lesson planning in a major way this year, and that's happening across the county. You're going to hear that as a common theme, but we have processes in place to review, collect, and take a look at what our teachers are teaching to make sure that's the right level of rigor, that the intensity is there, and that our students are getting the best quality instruction. So we have robust plans in place for that, and that is going well, actually. And that's nothing new, but you know, the scrutiny of it and the feedback and that sort of thing is sometimes is what will make the difference. We continue with our visible learning strategies. Pushing very hard for reading and writing in all subject areas. So reading and writing and language arts class, of course, but that goes very far in science and social studies as well. So we're asking and challenging teachers to have students reading and writing on a daily basis in all subjects, and that will conversely help them master the content area as well as improve their reading. Reading instruction, you've heard a lot about the Virginia Literacy Act, and we're not quite there at the secondary level for the implementation of it, but our teachers are being provided staff development this year on best practices in reading instruction, and that's outlined in our school improvement plan, the specific strategies that we want teachers using and practices that we expect them to use as well, which are all evidence-based and what we would want to see in our children's classrooms. We also have all-in tutoring happening again this year, and we're excited to, we're underway several weeks in with that, and we have quite a few students participating, and then we're going to continue with our exploratory area intervention programs. Family and student engagement is paramount to improving student performance. I espouse the belief of having empowered, efficacious parents that know how to help their children, and they believe in their ability to help their children. And that happens through teachers communicating that out and empowering those parents. I, as a principal, have been in the situation before where I don't know how to help my child, and so I see that, and it's important for our teachers to be able to put those materials in our children's hands so that the parents can then study with their children, review the notes, have the dinner table discussions, and those sorts of things. So a major focus on the efficacious parent. We've also already had Parent University once this year, which we aim to help students, help parents become more familiar with the software in place, such as Canvas and Power School Parent Portal, as well as other avenues to support their child through resources. Excited, a new initiative for this year that we're excited about is implementing a house model at Locust Grove Middle School. Of course, we've always had our team models. We're taking it a little bit further and adding a little bit of positive recognition and incentive to that. So students are able to get very seamlessly an easy reward system where students are able to get recognized for positive things. Their parents can find out about it, and that's used then to as a token economy type of situation where students can then trade that in for other tangibles and things of that nature. But that's been very well received by students, and it's working wonders in terms of engagement. I've already talked about the attendance incentive program, so we don't need to go there. Teacher support. We are fastidiously following our observation and evaluation schedules and making sure that teachers are getting on-the-spot coaching by administrators, as well as getting feedback in a timely manner and getting frequent classroom visits. And so that is well underway. We also have very clear meeting structures that we offer for teachers so that they can be so that they are very aware of the different ways in which they can help students through different committees, et cetera, in the school. And that's well underway as well. Mentor-mentee workshops. We are strengthening our mentor and mentee program with the help of Ms. Rhodes, who's taken that on. And we are offering not just sessions for mentees, but mentors as well on how to be an effective mentor, how to be an active listener, and those sorts of things. And we're meeting about twice a month with our mentors and our mentees in order to get them moving in the right direction. And then finally, one of my major philosophies around leadership is the importance of shared leadership and decision making, because the three of us can't do it all alone, and it's essential to build that capacity within our teachers. And not to mention, teachers, when they have that ownership over their outcomes and their direction, they feel supported and they're much more confident in what they're doing, and they feel good. So anyway, without further ado, that is the main highlights, just a very snippet bit of what is in our school improvement plan. Do we take questions at the end? Okay. So at this time, I will pass it off to Ms. Burke from Prospect Heights.
Can we do the questions before you walk away?
They might have some for you before you go, Nick, before Renee comes up.
Okay. I'm here to take your questions.
I'll start with saying thank you again to the board for supporting an additional assistant principal position at Locust Grove Middle School. You see two wonderful assistant principals behind Mr. Sedano, Ms. Rombach, who is now third year, correct, Marlene? Mm-hmm. And Ms. Rhodes, who the position that you all supported us creating. And that is a rather large building to try to run with two folks. And some folks have tried, and it really wears you down. And so thank you to the support for that building level position.
Yeah, and I second that. Definitely keeping the color on my hair as long as possible. So thank you guys for supporting that. And it's been, I can feel the difference, and I'm sure Ms. Rombach and the students and staff can speak to that as well, that difference is felt with her presence. So welcome aboard, and thank you. And thank you.
Oh, of course I do. I'm sorry. This was your first full year?
First full year at Locust Grove Middle School.
Correct.
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good. Made some tremendous progress, and I'm sure you're feeling this year with the new addition that you both can breathe a little bit.
Better.
How many students?
700, just under, like 1 or 2 or 3 under.
Yeah. It's a good number.
Mm-hmm.
2 quick questions for you. Number one, what's the biggest challenge in doing your job today?
Finding time in the day. Just to be honest, managing emails, finding time to carve out all the things that need to be done and still have the various entities that need the support to feel the support. So really just finding the time in the day. The challenges are one that they've always been. There may be more pieces to it and maybe more complex than it was in the past, but the biggest challenge is merely finding the time to give everybody the attention that they need and that they deserve, because honestly, they come walking into the office and they need something from me, and it's finding that time to tear away from that and give it to the individual in front of me. So nothing that necessarily needs to be provided by the board, but it's just that time of the day and that ability to be there for all the people that need you.
Would love to be able to tell you that we could create more time.
I can't do it.
We cannot.
That could be a 5-0 vote, right?
Last question from me. What do you need from us that you're not, maybe not currently getting? Could be anything.
First and foremost comes to financial support for the schools. I was at Gordon Barber. I sat on top of Albemarle. I'm at Locust Grove Middle. I sit on top of Spotsy. We do have trouble attracting and retaining teachers when it comes to salaries. I would say that's paramount, is making sure that our staff are compensated justly and compensated in a manner that's doesn't incentivize them driving 20 miles across a county line, or sometimes they live in that county and they're driving here. That doesn't incentivize them to stay where they are living. So I think that's priority number one this year, is going to be getting salaries in line to make it more of a competitive environment for our principals when we're hiring.
Perfect. And I would just like to thank you and I always mispronounce your last name.
Rhodes.
Thank you, both of you. I mean, last year you had almost 700 students, and you guys worked your butts off. So I've said it to Mr. Sedano a few times. You and I haven't had an opportunity to speak in detail, but just wanted to say thank you. You guys worked really, really hard last year. So thank you very much.
Anything else?
Yes,
Please.
yeah. I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate the data, the evidence-based information, and the time that you spend trying to make sure that you're doing it right. Obviously, with your test scores and everything, there has been significant improvement just since you've come to join. All three of you, actually, you this time. But it's just really great to see the team mentality, the focus on doing what's best for students. The absenteeism, awesome, in my opinion. You know, we can't, I think in all of our opinion, we can't provide the level of education that our students are entitled to. We can't have the expectations on increased test scores and things going forward in their adult life in a positive manner unless they're actually in school and getting those lessons and getting that support. So thank you for your support to the students. Thank you to your support for each other. And thank you for helping to make sure that the teachers understand how much you care, not only about the students, but about those teachers also. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could you explain the e-hall pass a little bit?
Yeah. So middle school. The times in the hallways, right? So e-hall pass solves a lot of problems. One, knowing who's out of the classroom and where they're going, and then tracking that so that it can be viewed real time by an administrator or anybody that's looking for a student. So say you have an emergency, God forbid, you can run a report and find out everybody that was not in a classroom. You know, say you go into a lockdown, we can pull that up and say these are the kids that are out of the classroom. Beyond that, though, it allows us to track time out of class, so we can talk with parents data oriented about, instead of saying, you know, your child's out of class a lot, we can say, you know, they spent 35 minutes out of my class in the past 2 days. It also it allows, really the function of it though is to get rid of the paper hall pass and track when kids are in and out. And it does that, but the benefits also go into investigation side. You know, say you have damage to a bathroom, you can see which bathroom was accessed, who was out there, say a note's left, something's written. It allows us to operate from a much more safe perspective that manner. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's good. It's a good value, and it took some onboarding and some training, but it really works. And as long as everybody's using it, it's hard to slip by.
And I echo congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whole report.
Thank you.
Anxious to see science next year.
As am I.
Thanks for all you do.
Thanks. No problem. Thank you, guys.
I won't hold your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. And probably about a year ago today, this wonderful principal that I'm bringing forward said, just wait till you see what we do next year. And it was quite a labor of love.
No pressure there.
And quite an effort to increase rigor, relevance, accountability across the board. Pretty much, and with a very simple and effective focus on high quality planning, lesson planning, as well as planning together. And so you are about to see a story of transformation in a year that I'm incredibly proud of, Renee, and you and Joe should be as well. So I happily turn it over to Ms. Burke, the proud principal of Prospect Heights.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here this evening, Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Hornick, and community members. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you about Prospect Heights Middle School's achievement last year, as well as what our continuous improvement plan is going to be for this year. Last year, I stood before this board where student achievement scores did not meet school quality indicators. And I am here tonight to say how proud Mr. Wilson and I are of our faculty and staff, everybody, down to custodians, instructional assistants, exploratory teachers, school counseling, and all of our core teaching staff. They were all really part of this success. Our leadership team, they came together, and we formulated this plan together. We implemented this plan together, and we monitor this plan together. And so those are all very important pieces to the in-school improvement process. So if you take a look up here at the school quality indicators, and I'm going to ask Laura, my eyesight is awful. If you could just make that a little larger for me. Last year in English and science and chronic absenteeism, we were in the yellow. And we are proud to say that they're in the green. If you look at achievement gaps for English and mathematics, we were in red. We did a lot of hard work to bring those up to the green level. If you could go to the next slide, please. So if you take a look at English achievement, we exceeded our benchmark by 5%. We're proud of that for English. By 9% in the area of mathematics. And our academic achievement in science, we squeaked by with 1%, but we did it. And so we're proud of that. Our chronic absenteeism is at 17%. We would have really liked that to have been 15. We worked hard to get close, but not quite there. And so we did meet the R10 for reducing our chronic absenteeism by 10%. You can go to the next slide, please. Mr. Sedano did a great job of explaining the difference between these two graphs. I'm going to take you to the right-hand side where it shows annual academic achievement and in the area of English. And so we made our achievement outright. We increased our student achievement from last year by 17% in the area of English. If you can go to the next slide, please. This is the same type of scenario for mathematics. As you can see, we really did the same thing where we increased our student achievement in math by 14%. We made it outright again with a 79% student achievement. And if you go to the next slide, this is for science. Science had a huge gain as well in student achievement from last school year. We made it again outright for that one-year achievement with 71%. As you can see, we did close the gaps in our English and mathematics achievement. Areas last year that were in red were for students, black students, we were red for English and math. We were red for economically disadvantaged. You can now see that they are green and yellow in the area of math for economically disadvantaged. In the area of students with disabilities, we were red. We will have to continue to work on that because we're in our fourth year. And so we really have to make that outright again this year to meet our federal standards of student achievement. This is just our percentages. What I would like to highlight here is we did reduce our area in special education or students with special needs and disabilities. That area is in yellow. And so we are now considered level 2 because we reduced our basically our pass rate, increased it by more than 10% there. So that area is yellow instead of red as it was the year before. Some noted successes were our students, our Hispanic students from last year showed noted increases, multiple races showed noted increase, as well as our English learners. Go to the next slide, please. Chronic absenteeism, we did reduce this from the year before by 4%. We are going to continue to work hard with students who are not attending school, and I will go into a little more detail about that in just a moment. So we had such success with our plan last year. We are building upon what we did last year. And so we have 3 focuses. One is our instructional focus, obviously. The next focus is our response to intervention. And the last piece is family and student engagement. And so under instruction, lesson planning is really, there's a simple formula for lesson planning. And as a school, we had to come up with a formula that our new teachers could follow and understand. And really, it's quite simple. What are students going to learn today? How are they going to learn it? How are we going to engage them in that learning? How did we know that they learned it for the day? And what do we do if they learned it or they didn't learn it? And so our lesson plans are set up in that manner. And those words in some way, obviously there's different criteria under each of those areas. But it really simplified, especially for our new teachers who are coming new into teaching, what it should look like in a day in their classroom, teaching a lesson. And so our curriculum leaders, they came together. We developed those lesson plan templates. And the important piece is, and I want to thank you for this because you included in our calendar last year, some days for teachers to work. We use those days to work. We use those days to plan. And aside from those work days, we also used days that we set aside every week. We make an effort every Tuesday and every Friday to have unencumbered time where teachers can plan together, where our L teachers, our gifted teachers, our special education teachers can sit and plan with the core content teachers at their grade level. So that time is very important, and I think, and I know attributed to our success last year. The other piece is giving, immediate feedback on classroom observations. We are actually currently in that process with our mentor and mentee teachers, where we just set up a schedule for them to observe each other using our observation tools, so they're very familiar with that and what the look-fors are. I think that's probably one of the hardest things for new teachers coming in. What am I going to look for when a principal comes into my classroom? How am I going to be evaluated? And so we're using a non-evaluative approach with our mentor and mentee program. The other thing we found a lot of value in last year that we're going to continue with this year is in every departmental meeting, we do peer review of lesson plans. The alignment of our curriculum is key. That means what we're teaching, what we're writing down in that lesson plan, which is called the written curriculum, should be implemented as the taught curriculum. They should be aligned to what we're asking from our SOL standards. And so when teachers, they are actually, looking at other teachers' lesson plans and evaluating how they felt like they did on alignment. Alignment is key. I've told teachers time and time again, if you're not aligned and if you're just going to give somebody something in your classroom that's a worksheet, you're just throwing away time because it's not aligned to the state standards. And so you really have to be intentional with that. And of course, our staff development, that's another thank you. We've been sending to the board for funding time and money for our teachers to be able to go to conferences. And, I want to thank our local division leaders and, putting together staff development for our staff. That is hugely important. Teachers feel valued when we can send them out to different conferences and they can learn about their craft and become better at their craft or the latest things that are out in their area of specialty. And of course, I just mentioned earlier, mentoring of our novice staff. That doesn't just mean the new teacher that started this year. This also includes, our teachers who are 3 years in, and they were career switchers. I've got a couple of big shout outs, Elaine Seal, Suzanne Gerald, Betsy Hamilton, who's here this evening. Thank you for coming, Betsy. They mentored some of our new onboarding teachers. It takes a lot of energy to do that, and they did a really fabulous job, so I want to recognize their efforts. And before I go on instruction, I forgot. See, I should follow my script. I do want to give a big shout out to our history department. They're not up here as part of accreditation, but under Jennifer Conley's leadership, they increased their scores, achievement scores, by 11% last year, and they're not included in here, and they should be recognized. So now I'm going to move back on to script. Thank you for that. The other piece of our school improvement plan that's very, very important is our response to intervention. What do we do when students are struggling with academics, behavior, or attendance? And so what we take a look at just in academics, the biggest bang for our buck has been our remediation block for math and English intervention. And our science teachers help us with this. Our history teachers help our math and English teachers, as well as our exploratory teachers. Ms. Fitch, I got to give her a shout out. She does an algebra readiness class for me and does it very well. And so it is a team effort. We also have all-in academic tutoring after schools on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That has been a big help, where we put small groups of students with teachers in areas for math and English. And of course, we also have to look at behavior. We are going to continue with our school-wide behavior expectations. We just finished doing a staff development with our staff on how do we handle teacher-managed behavior in the classroom versus when an administrator has to get involved, and we went through different scenarios. I think that helped clarify for teachers, especially our new folks, to our school. With that, the other pieces, our interventionist leaders of our school improvement team came up with B-Bucks, where students earn B-Bucks in their classrooms or anywhere in the building where they are doing the right thing and just going above and beyond, and they can then turn those B-Bucks in at our school store. And of course, the other piece for even students with challenging behaviors is we continue to create plans with our community partners. I thank them. Our school social worker, I need to thank Wendy Boone. She is a big part of this process as well. And our central office staff, school psychologists, to help in building those, and our counselors building those plans for students with challenging behaviors. And then last, we have chronic absenteeism. That is a big one. And students can't learn if they're not in school. It's hard to learn if they miss a significant amount of days. And so we will continue to meet as a school-wide attendance team to track and monitor data weekly. We are just now went out last week in regards to chronic absenteeism. And the way that we track that is by looking at if you are in school for 10 days and you've missed one day, you're already chronically absent, because it's 10% of the time that we've been in school. So we send out reminders to parents to say that your child has met that threshold, even though we're at the very beginning of the school year. And we offer what's called make-up learning time after schools on Mondays and Wednesdays in the area of math. And of course, that was all the funding that came through all-in tutoring and that from the state. And that's how we're using that money. And then, of course, we have home visits. Sometimes we have families that struggle out there. Sometimes they don't have gas money, or their grandparents are at home. We have to meet our families where they are, and we have to, formulate plans for them to get their their children in school. And so that is our part of our continuous and school improvement plan. There are other items, but these are probably the most important and most impactful things that we have done as a school. So.
Thank you, Renee. Mr. Rickett, I suspect you have questions.
Infamous. I wasn't on the board last year, so I didn't set up. I didn't set up here. I was in the middle of a campaign season. I would just say this, as someone who had 3 children go through the school when you were there, this is absolutely what I knew we would see, from you and your team that you have put together. So congratulations and, kudos. So I do have 2 questions, but one thing I wanted to mention, you brought up history. Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing up history. And as, before I sat in this seat and having conversations with parents and so forth, it seems like the narrative sometimes is, the state tells us we need to hit A, B, and C, and then that's what we focus on. History is just as important as math and some of the other statistics that you went through. So I can't speak for all 5 of us, but I would love some updates on just how we're challenging our young people on a daily basis in every aspect of learning. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront. Biggest challenge?
Well, I'm going to echo what Mr. Sedana said. There's never enough time in the day to get everything that we need to get accomplished. It is our biggest challenge. I think for us is, just bringing that chronic absenteeism down. That's a challenge. I know you're going to ask me, if you're going to ask the same question, what am I going to need? I would love, and he knows what I'm going to ask for, I would love to have an attendance officer back at my school. We had one last school year, and it was ESSA funded, and we lost that through the ESSA funded position. But if we can find it in our budget next year, we would really appreciate it. That would help tremendously. And of course, our teachers work hard. And I'm going to echo what Mr. Sedano said about our salaries, looking at maybe bonuses for our high needs areas, math, English, our special education areas. That's an important area. Maybe finding more housing. That might be another piece, for teachers who want to come to this area. There's not much out here, especially in my area, in our district down towards, Somerset and Montpelier. There's not much for sale or for rent in those areas. And I think it's tough to attract people when we don't have housing. Yeah.
Well said.
So,
well said. Thank you.
I think Jack really enjoyed the dunk tank, so he might offer to do that for
okay.
as well. But I also wanted to highlight, I know you brought up the mentoring and the teachers. I've talked to teachers that work at your school, and I haven't talked to teachers in all the schools, but specifically it has been brought to my attention that the atmosphere and the environment at the school is night and day from where they had been prior. And so, from new teachers coming in, they feel the welcoming atmosphere, they feel the support from their mentor teachers. So that is very evident, and I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that as well. Salaries, that's great, but if you don't like where you work, you're not going to stay. And so, you got to focus on the holistic approach, and I think you all are nailing it. So I certainly appreciate that.
Yes. I have a couple questions. So first of all, when you were talking about the alignment, is that relative to cross-subject and cross-grade level? How can you give
it is. Each subject area has an SOL framework that is published out from the state VDOE. We look at that specifically in each content, and what we're doing is looking for alignment of our lessons to the state framework. With the specific SOLs.
But not teaching to the test type
Not
of
teaching to the test.
Just wanted to clarify that. I didn't think so. Thank you. I also have a couple other things to say. Science, after the 4th year, what will happen?
Well, we have to continue to make it outright. So, So we will continue to work on those Scott standards, and actually we are implementing, the 5 E's to help support students understanding science phenomena, because that's really what the Scott standards or the science standards are based upon. So,
Thank you. Is there any type of cross-grade level, especially with the science issue that we are experiencing statewide, cross-grade level between middle school, 7th and 8th, and high school that occurs as far as collaboration?
well, I don't have a collaboration between the high school and the middle school, but what we are provided through the framework are essential skills from the previous years of content. And so when our teachers plan their lessons, they're going to look at those previous skills taught and how they need to be reiterated in that school year science curriculum for that particular course.
Awesome. Thank you.
I will say one thing just to keep in mind with science. This is, I guess, more impactful at the high school level. You have a lot of things that plague us with finding teachers in the correct certifications. You can't have a bio background and you go and teach physics or chemistry, et cetera, right? And so those folks, like many others, have a lot of options for what they can do with their career. And this is not the only thing that they can do. The second thing is, I will just remind the board that, as has been kind of the recent trend, science standards were very, very quickly rushed forward to be changed, and tests and cut scores and everything were done, Evan, correct, pretty much as we were in a school year.
The data was lagging coming in.
Last year?
Just this last year.
Correct. So I think when you see trends, you say, wow, look at how the performance has changed. What strikes me is the lack of understanding that the rules of the game have changed. It is a totally different, in many cases, crop of students, and an entirely different test in our case. So it is not as simple as to say, it is not necessarily always an apples to apples comparison, because last year's earth science test takers are not this year's earth science test takers. Last year's earth science test and standards are not this year's earth science test and standards. And so when you rush through, and not to say that we don't want to continue to pursue additional rigor, because we do, but when you move things forward and move things up, it puts a significantly larger amount of pressure on our folks, that is generally not particularly great for retention. And unfortunately, it is not something that we have actually any control over. And so I do think it's important when we talk a lot about science, and we have seen some woes in science. Part of it is you're coming out of COVID. I think this is particularly true at the elementary level. There was such an intense focus on reading, writing, math, reading, writing, math, reading and math in particular. What gets prioritized gets done. And that's where the priority was. And then as you're coming out of COVID, you are trying to rebuild a larger set of science skills with less experienced educators in the midst of the tests and the standards and everything being changed. So the context that we exist in, I think, is important to remind folks that it is always not as simple as looking at a score to really get the actual true perspective of what we deal with and what you all deal with on a day-to-day basis. So just of particular note with the focus on science.
Thank you. That was good. Not quite done. I just want to also say it takes a village. It's obvious that you have that village. You have developed an amazing team spirit and mentality. I love the mentor program. I love at your site division-wide. That's a great opportunity for teachers to get that support they need. And I absolutely agree with the salaries, in addition to quality of living and climate and culture as one of the big needs that we need to continue fighting for our teachers and our staff. So thank you so much. Just so impressive. Very, very impressive.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. I would like to take a moment to introduce Wayne Price, Orange County High School principal.
Thank you, Renee. Mr. Wilson? And this is last but not least, Wayne, so welcome.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, board members. I'd like to introduce you to our administrative team we have here tonight. I got Ms. Catherine White here joining me tonight, Mr. Brandon Hatcher-Fagan, and Mr. Todd Satterwhite. So this is our team. Mr. Neely is unable to be with us tonight. He had a prior commitment, but that's our administrative team here at the high school. So tonight, we're going to go through our accreditation talk with you, and we're going to focus mainly on areas where we have room for improvement. You're going to see a lot of green, and you're going to see some very high numbers in certain areas, but we want to talk about areas where we can make the most improvement at. And so on this first one, you'll see our school quality indicators. We're green everywhere except for our chronic absenteeism. You'll see later we've had a pretty good reduction in our chronic absenteeism from the previous year, but we're still not where we need to be. So if we could go to the next slide. So this shows you exactly where we're at with our chronic absenteeism. 32% of our students last year were identified as chronically absent. That number was a little bit higher, but if y'all remember at the end of last year, we had the opportunity to offer students a chance to make up time and to recover some time, and we had a pretty good number of students who did that, which was able to bring us down to that 32%. Achievement gaps. We're looking pretty good on our achievement gaps with the exception of one very glaring area. In English, our students with disabilities is not where it needs to be. We are R10, which means we have shown improvement, more improvement of what we needed to show. But as you heard earlier, we're in our final year of R10. If we do not beat outright 75% this year, then I'll stand in front of y'all next year either with a red there or a green. There is no more yellow for us. We do not get to make improvement again. We have to make it outright. So we have put in one of our major improvement areas for the school, that subgroup is number one. We are putting as many resources as we can possibly put in there to help our students achieve that rate this year. So we're shooting for 75% or higher with our students with disability. This right here shows where our numbers lie with each subgroup. And I just want to point a couple things out. We've already talked about the students with disabilities. You see where that is. But if you look under English learners with math, I'd like to give a shout out to Tracy Munger, Mr. Todd Satterwhite, and our math department. 95% with our L students is incredible. Those folks really worked hard last year. And also, you're going to see in just a minute, that translates over into our English department when we go on just a little bit further. But overall, those scores are very strong in our subgroups. And once again, you see the 3-year average versus the yearly average. You'll see this past year with our English, we were 86%, which was the highest for our 3 years, so that one translated there. And I would like to recognize Mr. John Ivywood, our instructional lead for our English department, as well as all of our English teachers for the work they put in to help us achieve at that level last year. They worked very hard to help us come up with it, to where we need to go. We went from 80 to 86%. Here we are in math. You saw some high numbers in math earlier, but overall our 3-year rate was 86%, but last year we were at 82% overall. So we used our 3-year average for our accreditation total for that. We did have a slight decrease in math, but we saw an increase in our subgroups. Here we are with science. Science this year was our one area for our biggest improvement. You heard some things about how things may have changed a little bit. We have had this year we've added an outstanding group of young science teachers who are doing fantastic work. We hope to really improve on that number for next year. But we are sitting currently at 75% for our 3-year average for science. Here's a number that shows you our chronic absenteeism. We saw about a 5 percentage point drop from last year. We credit that primarily with some of the things we did at the end of school last year. And the reason I highlight that is because we have already started those here at the beginning of school this year. Offering the time after school for students to stay and get tutored to make up time. We've already started Saturday school for our students, opportunities there. And we've also added a young man, Mr. David Lamb, who's working with our attendance program part-time, who is doing an amazing job. He has taken our communication to a whole new level with parents. He's reaching out, he's working with families, and we're already seeing positive results from his work that he's putting in there in a part-time capacity. So he's doing a great job for us, and we hope to greatly improve upon that number this coming year. Here's one of our highlights. Our graduation rate last year, 94.4%. That's been the highest it's been in where we've been tracking. So we had a very strong year last year. Our guidance department worked very hard to make sure that all our students were on track to graduate. Last year we had some folks who they made it. They made it, but it was the last minute, but they made it, and that really helped us out. But they made it because we had outstanding staff supporting them up until the very last minute to help them do everything they possibly could to walk across that stage, and they did. So we're thankful our graduation rate sits at 94.4%, which is also where we're at right now. We're on track to improve that for this coming year. Dr. Honaker mentioned to you our CCCRI, which is a little bit different. It's another way we measure our students, and they need to meet one of these 5 standards to be counted in that. And currently, we had a slight increase up to 87% this year, which means the students either have to take an AP class or a DE class, an advanced level class, or they have to take a CTE class and have the completer with the appropriate testing there. Also, they can do a work-based learning experience or a service learning experience. And finally, our JROTC program, if they take 3 courses in that, they can qualify through that as well. So we saw an increase in that, and we're really excited about our numbers in dual enrollment this year being up. So we'll have more students participating in that program this current year. Which goes on to some of our things I'd like to point out to you guys. With our instruction, in our reading, I've already talked to you about some of the things we're doing with our students who need additional support, but we're involved in something called evidence-based literacy, which is through our VDOE. We'll be working with them to implement that with our select group of English teachers and our special education teachers to better serve our students. Also, we've added some additional new teacher support in the form of two teachers in particular, Ms. Dina Estes and Bree Hoover, who are working with our new teachers and supporting them, and they're doing a fantastic job of getting in there and making sure those teachers have everything we need. I mentioned to you earlier we do have a group of young teachers coming in. They are a key component as to why these young teachers being so successful this year. They're in their rooms, they're giving them feedback, they're supporting, they're coaching, they're really helping out. So we're looking for great things to come through that. Also, our lesson plan monitoring. We're doing things a little bit different this year where our teachers, we call them our rookie teachers, who are our provisionally licensed teachers, they submit their lesson plans to their instructional lead for their program, department chair, and it also goes to the assistant principal or the administrator in charge of that department, where they get feedback on the quality of their lesson plans and supports that they may need to help with that. That is a change for us, and every teacher submits their lesson plans. Also, we're continuing with our walkthrough data in collaboration with our instructional coordinators, our administrative team. We schedule times to walk with our instructional coordinators for our own coaching so we can get support there, in addition to the walkthroughs we do independently. And the next one, our Focus PLC work with our lesson planning. You mentioned earlier, Dr. Hornick mentioned earlier about the changing of standards. Well, this year we got 2 underway. We got new English and math standards we're working in, and that's a very big challenge for our folks. There's been some significant changes there. I mentioned to you earlier about our focused tutoring and our interventions. I didn't mention to you our advisory block, homeroom block that we have every day. We have just begun putting students based on, we've prioritized our seniors and our juniors who need SOLs to graduate, where we've placed them into specific homerooms so they can get tutoring every single day before they have to retest and retake those exams so they can pass and meet those requirements. We found that by structuring it and put it during the instructional day, we have better participation, and rather than after school or on weekends. So we incorporated that. Also, our partnership with Mary Washington, University of Mary Washington. You'll see that coming up here real soon. I believe that is the 14th, where we're doing a lesson planning workshop with them. We've got quite a few teachers that will be participating. We'll be at the high school. And also, they're working with us also on our new teacher development. And don't forget, with UMW, our partnership with them with the STEM Academy. This is our first year with them. It seems to be going very well so far. And also our Future Educators Academy with Germanna Community College. Some of you guys got a chance to go where we had Governor Youngkin speak to us. And I was very excited to come to find out we're like one of the largest groups of in the counties, of all the counties there, with the most students in it. So we were very well represented in that. And you also see with DE enrollment that we are pretty much the largest school system represented with Germanna taking DE classes this year. So we have a very high number doing that. Student behavior. As you know, last year we had some challenges with our student behavior. We've incorporated something, we're piloting something called Educator's Handbook. And I've had a chance to share it with a few folks, but it gives us real-time, accurate data on how we're doing managing discipline in our school. And this is available to every administrator, as well as our central office personnel, where we actually can see what's going on, where it's at in the process, and when it's handled. And teachers get immediate feedback on what's going on with that. So that is a communication piece that has greatly enhanced our ability to handle discipline in a timely manner. And finally, we're continuing on with our communication. You guys have heard my weekly messages, I'm sure, but we've also added Mr. Hatcher Fagan has started a staff weekly update, and he does an amazing job with that. If you ever get a chance to share it, he does a great job of shouting out and celebrating the people in our school who are just doing amazing things, as well as letting everybody know things that are coming up to do. So we've added another step into our communication piece to help out. And we're going to continue all these things, and we look forward to another great year.
Well, you already know what the questions are going to be. So the first thing before you answer the question, super job. So 1 year under the belt, right?
Yes, sir.
Feel pretty good?
Fantastic.
Excellent. Excellent. Got a great team there behind you as well.
Absolutely.
Yep. Good deal. Number one challenge.
Mm-hmm. What's our number one job as educators? What do we promise every parent when they send their child to school? Safety is job one. Guys, I got 5 buildings where our students move in between. Safety has to be at the forefront of our conversations. It is a huge challenge for us. Any support we can have in improving our safety and procedures would be a big help. We want to provide the best environment we can for our kids, not only academically. We got a lot of good things going on academically. We can improve in our security standpoint. We have some things that we could do a lot better because, you know, we're the only school where students are actually driving cars to school. You know, they're walking among campus and going to different buildings, transporting to different locations during the day. We have a lot of exposure, and what we want to try to do is enhance our protocols so that we keep our students as safe as we possibly can. So anything you can do to help support us with that, we would greatly appreciate it.
So is that the answer to the second question?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you so much, Wayne. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Mr. Price, could you just explain quickly the attendance if you're absent, you can buy back your day by staying after school. Is that an hour for hour? Or
No, ma'am. We're
how
using
does it work?
the VDOE standards
Okay.
that were brought out, where it requires 3 hours of actual active live tutoring with a teacher to recover that one day.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And it has to.
Evan, I didn't know if you wanted to. You might know those standards.
Yeah, so for high school, for secondary schools, it's 3 days, and for elementary schools, it's 3 hours for 1 day. For elementary school, it's 2 hours for a day. It does not take the place of an actual absence in Power School in our student management system, but it actually goes in on one of our state reports that we send in at the end of the year, and it gets deducted off of that state report.
And there is a max. It doesn't.
The max is.
It does not perpetually go on. There is only X amount that can be credited back, lack of a better term.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes, please. Thank you. Sorry. I'm sorry. Is the communication piece that you were talking about what you had showed me previously, where you could like see the cell
Yes.
phone usage and all
Yes,
that
ma'am.
stuff?
Yes, ma'am,
Perfect.
it is. That's exactly what I was speaking of.
Thank you. Have you seen any positive impacts of the cell phone policy?
Oh, yes, huge.
Good,
Huge.
good.
And you can see that just by walking down the hallways, and when I sit in the lunchroom for lunch duty, actually watching students talk to each other and engage socially versus
Yeah.
this. We've seen a huge increase in that. And so there's been a lot of positives, and they greatly outweigh any negatives or any concerns that are brought to our attention. It really does help our teachers out in the classroom, keeping the kids focused back on what they need to do. And this is just an opinion piece. I don't have data to support this. I think it's cut down on a lot of the social drama that we have that builds up during the day, where text messaging going back and forth just builds all this energy. And I'm not saying it's eliminated, but it has greatly reduced a lot of our drama that we're dealing with.
Excellent. Wonderful to hear. Also, appreciate the focus on attendance. Do you have any insight as to why the math scores went down just a little bit? Was there any specific issue that, I think that's what I saw.
I mean, they went down from.
I think not yet last year, but the year before, maybe?
Yeah, year before, they went down. We did have a fluctuation in there. You know, we have a different set of students that come through with a different set of needs. And last year, students had a lot of needs. But I will tell you, if you're looking at the rate they're achieving at in the high 80s, and we did go down a little bit, we're still at a very high rate. So they're doing a great job, but we did have a decrease in that. And I credit that to a lot that we just had a different set of students come through. We are undergoing some changes with some curriculum, and we've made a few personnel changes in that area. I think we're in a better position this year to improve upon that.
Continue the wonderful job. You guys are an amazing team. Really appreciate all the hard work you've kind of put into turning around a lot of the previous years and previous administration issues that were present, and just continue to support those kids. So proud of the kids in Orange County and the teachers and administrators and our superintendent and our instructional leadership team. You guys are doing the right thing, and it's really noticed and appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
To mention one other thing, that educator's handbook piece,
Yes.
I'm so fascinated by that, thankful for that. Just the immediate feedback that teachers are getting, that an administrator is seeing what they're saying in such an immediate fashion, I think is huge for teacher morale and support, and also for dealing with the issues. So well done. I don't know.
Ms. Dawson, we're rolling it out to our bus drivers in the middle of October as well.
That's wonderful.
So we're going to see how it works with our bus drivers, so they have that same immediate feedback to know if a child's not on their bus for a day or something like that. They know immediately.
Yeah, I think that's great. I actually had a bus driver tell me recently out in town that they would like to be included in the loop a little bit more with things like Spirit Day. So we know if a kid's going to show up in pajamas or, what's going on. Could we? So that's maybe not a conversation for right now, but I did hear that from a bus driver. So that's
good
going to
feedback.
go over
Thank you.
well, I think. Thank you, Mr. Price.
Yes, ma'am.
And
So much.
team. Wonderful.
Yes, thank you all very much.
All right, Renee, well, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
So before I wrap it up, I would like to say just a thank you to these principals and assistant principals that were here tonight. They really are a great team. I think this might be the strongest cohesive team I've seen since I've been here as far as administration goes. And I'd like to also thank them for all their work with our coordinators here at Central Office, because they work very closely with them. They do walkthroughs together. They give each other feedback. They learn from one another. So that's really appreciated too. I just really like that teamwork and just the focus on instruction that they've had this past year. And I would be remiss if I did not just give one more shout out, and it's up here, to Renee Burke. What I'm showing now are just where you see gains. And look at all the blue. And I remember last year having a conversation with Renee after she got up here. It was hard for her last year to stand up here with, and she took it very, very personally. And I've never seen a principal and her teachers come together in such a fashion, and just look at that. So Renee, really, really amazing work. Amazing work to everyone, but Renee, that's incredible. So I'm not going to go through all these for you, but you can just kind of, if you could just go up a little bit, I think one's cut off. We want to make sure we see them all. Yeah, look at all that great gain. So if you see one that looks the same, it's just because maybe this rounds up. So maybe it was like a 68.9 and went to a 70.8 or something like that. So but it just puts it in there as an equal, but it really was a gain. So this was Prospect, and here is Locust Grove Middle Schools. So you'll see that there with that 78. It really was like 77 point something up to a 78 point something. And the high school. So some of the glows, reductions in chronic absenteeism across the board, not where we want it to be, of course, but reductions, and we're starting there. And I know that that's a huge focus at the high school this year. Some of the things that they didn't talk about a little bit, but making school very fun. I don't know if you've ever been on a first day of school, or if any of you happen to come to the high school on the first day of school, you would have seen some very interesting characters over there. Mr. Price has a pep rally on the first day of school, trying to get the kids excited about being back. And I think at 9th grade night, was it? He was green. So he was the Hulk. And it was interesting because I met with him the next day and he was still green. Like there was still green here and there. But that's what I mean. This is just such a great group all around. They all work together and really trying to make school a fun place to be, not only for the kids, but for the teachers. And a lot of all three of these schools are doing a lot more this year to recognize their teachers as well as their students with those incentives. Achievement, the gains in subgroups, and our English achievement trending upwards. I did want to point out some of the data we didn't get to show you on the screen from years past, but the dropout rate has decreased. It was 7.6 in 2022, and now we're down to a 3.6. That's considerable. The CCC, I left out a C there, sorry about that. CCCRI index, we've always had that data. It just didn't always count towards anything, but now the state has started in the past 2 years. But in 2019, we were at 77.7. We're all the way up to 86.5. And that's increased dual enrollment, increased AP, and increased pathways in CTE with students completing and getting credentials. And the graduation rate increase, 88.6 in 2022, all the way up to 94.4. I think that's some really great glows. And then, of course, with our grows, chronic absenteeism is still a grow. It's a glow, but we're not there yet. And then, of course, our subgroup of students with disabilities. And we are working very closely with Mrs. Ayler and her department and all the teachers and really working to have those teachers as well as our ELL teachers involved in the planning and working with the teams of teachers. So that's just a few glows and grows. And again, I would just like to thank all of the principals and the teachers and the coordinators and one other person, Evan Straub. There he is. This is Evan. Evan is our data person, and all these great graphs and numbers and putting all this together, we would not look this good if it wasn't for Evan.
Evan, thank you.
Yes. So thank you, Evan, for all that you did to get this ready. So
Thank you, Dr. Honecker.
Yes, thank
and
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
A well-deserved shout out for you, Evan. And Madam Chair, before we just pass it on, I thought Wayne, brought up a good point. Obviously, in the realm of safety and security, we had a very disheartening incident, right, and situation that occurred a week ago at Orange Elementary. And so I would like to just, on behalf of the folks in the school division, I'd like to thank the board first and foremost for being immediately engaged, prepared to assist. Let me know what we can do to help. And you guys were immediately engaged up to the point of many of you coming along and going to a neighboring school division to begin truly is to continue the conversation about how to continue to provide layered security measures on top of what all the things and the robust plans that we have in place. Parental oversight and engagement with us and with children is absolutely irreplaceable. That is where all good things start. Couple that with our desire to be effective partners with our parents and to have a learning environment that is conducive in both safety as well as engagement, to have touch points and connections between students and adults, to have processes and procedures in place to help students address and rectify concerns so that they do not feel like they have to go at it on their own. And that is quite a large component that comes back to Susan and your team's work with mental health and threat assessments. Our incredibly strong partnership with the Sheriff's Office. We, in one of our, seems like countless debriefs last week, Major Lacasse talked at length about how, he has been at the Sheriff's Office for a number of years. And he spoke at length and eloquently about the level of connection that exists now, even versus the level of connection between our two organizations that has existed in the recent past. And I could tell you he was incredibly impressed by the quality and level of the interaction and partnership. When we went on Friday to visit our neighboring school division in Louisa, I believe we had at least 7 or 8 members of the Sheriff's Office that went with us. Multiple board members, multiple folks in the administrative team, as well as a number of principals. And so I can tell you that that we value and focus and are constantly concerned with a safe and secure learning environment. And I think what we learned in our visit and what we know to be true is if there was one absolute foolproof guaranteed measure to prevent every individual possibility from happening, it would exist. Some company would have already patented it, and every school division in America would have it. What we know is we have to build, that doesn't exist, so we have to build as many supports and layers into our security programming that we can. And we have a number of things, and we need to continue the conversation. I think other things that we learned is it is very important to be judicious, to take logical and thoughtful steps forward, so that the issue you are trying to rectify does not create 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 other issues that you did not see coming or were unintended. And so We will continue, particularly through our Blue Ribbon Panel, which is a small but highly skilled task force that is off of our Safe and Supportive Schools team, to continue to evaluate all the options on the table, and some of which I listed in the letter that I sent to the community last week. But to put a bow on this discussion, I thank you to the school board. Thank you to Susan and Judy. They were in town. I was not on Monday, which made navigating this challenge a little bit more difficult as I was at a conference. But you all responded immediately to Orange Elementary to assist. Our SRO at Orange Elementary School, he is a phenomenal human being. He is a phenomenal school resource officer, so we definitely owe a debt of gratitude to Officer Wilson. And to the Orange community, I want you to know that we are with you. We were here to support you. We will work and navigate through this situation together, both to process and to heal, as well as to hopefully make sure that you know very clearly that the safety of your children remains our top priority. And that is true for every single building and every single person that sits in these seats twice a month. And finally, a huge thank you to Mr. Johnson and Ms. Fake, our principal and assistant principal, as well as the staff members at Orange Elementary School. And I can tell you that it was quite impressive to be there Tuesday morning and to see the love and support and the culture that already exists in the building, which has been a huge source of a huge source of our ability and the school's ability and the students' ability to move forward positively, is because there already is an incredibly strong culture, as well as a network of parent and community support that has been built up through the years at that building. And so I would be remiss if I didn't speak on that briefly this evening, to let the community know that security and safety remains top of mind. It always is, and Monday was an excellent reminder of why it must continue to be. That is always number one, and there really truly isn't a close second. But thank you to the board for your support for me personally, as well as for our friends and family at Orange Elementary School. And with that, Madam Chair, I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you very much. Thank you all for tonight. Appreciate all your hard work. We'll move on to if you would like, go ahead. You can ask a question before we get started.
Good evening, sir. Nice to meet you for the first time, I guess. My name is Thomas Seal. I have two small children in the Orange Elementary School who were, actually present the day that the weapon was found. It was a long shot in the dark. It was a lucky find. It could have been a lot worse. I guess we're thankful that it was, caught, handled. But what's kind of bothers me, because I'm a father, two little girls, is the week prior to this incident, there was text messages, emails going around, people threatening Orange County schools. The following week, this incident happens. There was a short notification period. I understand things happen. We get the same message today flying around that there's going to be another incident with Orange County schools. Last time they brushed it off, it was in Georgia or something of that nature. The parents know nothing. There's no transparency, not saying it's you all, but I guess through Sheriff's Department. Typically, and just being honest, if I was that reckless with my firearm, I'd be in jail. If my child took my weapon to school, nothing's being done about the situation. Nobody's been charged. We've got so many copycats in the world today. When's it going to happen again? If a kid say, well, the only thing happened is I don't get to go to school, which is not fair to the child, 6-year-old, they're not too bright. You know, they don't think logical like grown-ups that provide these weapons accessible to these children, or it wouldn't happen. Lots of parents would like to see these parents charged so the next child will think twice, or the next parent will secure their weapons. Can you give us any feedback on what's taking place, or?
As far as the sheriff's office, no, sir.
Yeah, I mean, all you hear is it's under investigation. I mean, and people are under the assumption that it's a parent that's basically in the school system or in law enforcement or in the court system, and they're trying to brush it under the carpet. Anyone else would have been charged by now.
Well, I have had. I
mean,
I could talk from a school perspective,
right? I understand.
Because I have had many conversations with the sheriff, and that his own 2 children attend Orange County schools, and so I know that from what he has said, and I believe him. I know they are doing everything they can to hold the responsible parties accountable, and I agree with you 100%. That accountability in these situations is absolutely what is needed. And from a school perspective, what this group, as well as our administrators, are trying to figure out what additional, whether it be likely piece of technology, detection system, et cetera, what else might we need to pursue in order to further protect ourselves from these types of situations. That's exactly the type of work that we are working for right now, and which was the purpose of our visit to a neighboring county. And again, within the week of it happening, to begin actually taking a look at school divisions that have had incidents and have responded with different pieces of technology. So, but I do agree with you that there's been a lot, particularly the last few years, with discussions about the importance of parent involvement and parent rights. And I think that all of us need to take that very seriously. That's why I put, when I sent out the communication on Monday, I talked the things that I reflect I need to do. I have 2 students in the school division as well, and things that I need to not take for granted because I might think that they're good kids, and I need to be very responsible with checking on them, what I do with my personal belongings as well. So there is nothing that you say that I disagree with. The folks do need to be held accountable. And we also have a responsibility to do everything we can to provide as many layers of security as we can as a school division. So that is definitely our focus moving forward.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yep.
I also want to highlight the fact that the reason why parents know about these things circulating online is because we have a level of transparency that we haven't seen in prior years. As soon as we're aware of something, Dr. Hornick sends a message out. And I think that's the expectation of all of us here, is that parents are aware of what's going on. And even with the delay in communication, that was transparent. And there was accountability there. And even on my part, I've ensured that I'm on all school communications moving forward at each school level. So that way, if I'm aware of something and don't see a communication coming through, then I can be part of the solution to help ensure that transparency is there. And so this matter, I know, has been handled very well at the school level.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it comes at a level of reactivity versus proactivity. But at the same time, we've never been faced with anything remotely close to this. And I do know that us as board members and Board of Supervisors members we are looking for active solutions to ensure that something like this can't happen again. And I know I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm open to other suggestions that the community members might have, staff, same thing. If you have ideas or solutions that you want to explore, please send them our way.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, anything we do, and I understand, the delay in communication with parents, I understand, I get it. You got you got a lot of children to secure in a situation like that. They become priority. You don't have time to call the parents and, you take care of the situation. I respect that. I appreciate that. But if people aren't, in the world that we're in, it's not like when we were kids going to school. It's a totally new world. You got different animals in the world, but if you don't hold people accountable, the copycats will follow. Bottom line, I've got weapons. I'm not against weapons. My wife doesn't even know the combination to my safe. My kids will not access any of my firearms. Hold them accountable. The parents want to know. There's a lot of stuff going around. The parents want to know, and, you hear nothing.
And I think those conversations need to be had with the sheriff's office and the Commonwealth attorney. I've worked in the court system for many years, and I understand the frustration. So as a community, that would be my call to action. If you're not seeing action, or if you're not seeing the accountability or the level, at the level of your expectation, then absolutely make those things known. And as a community, we've seen through water crises and everything else that we can come together and make a difference. And I think moving forward, that's the next step.
Mm-hmm. Because, they didn't say it like a Western day, let's be cowboys and Indians or whatever. And a child showed up on Western Day with a 6-shooter pistol, and could have very well gone to the playground. And like the child, innocent, playing, you could have had 6 bodies to pick up.
We appreciate you
it's
coming
not
forward,
good.
sir. We appreciate it very much. It's a lot to take on, and I think we're evolving, and unfortunately we're at the point where we're taking on one punch at a time, and it seems like we just keep getting bombarded with things that are going on through the community. So appreciate you coming forward.
But as the school board, is it something that you all can do to persuade or lead them in the right direction? Because y'all are the school board over our children.
Yeah, I think at some point it goes to, once
just
it goes
get off
to them,
the pot and do something.
We've had our input to them, and I think at that point, then they take it from there. So, we've given them the information, so we'll see how it ends out.
All right.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being engaged, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. Moving on, board member items. Ms. Harrington, Ms. Quintern, would you like to start off? We'll do the legislative committee update.
Well, we haven't met, Madam Chair, since our last, but I wanted to have a conversation if there's anything that we wanted to present to our legislators, whether that be pushing for funding for weapons detectors or, just off the top of my head, different legislative ideas moving forward. I know we discussed pushing forward legislation to hold nonprofit organizations accountable that receive taxpayer dollars to FOIAs. So before we met again, I wanted to have a conversation with the board to see if there's anything further that we want to bring forward as a group. I know Sandy and I are representatives, and so we just want to get a little bit of guidance from you all. So we weren't afforded that opportunity. I know we were going to discuss this at the retreat. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen. So,
I think, in my opinion, one of the things obviously is very pressing at this point is specific funding for some type of metal detector or weapons detector or any type of security safety measures for each school or for the in-school district, however we feel it would be best worded. But I think somewhere along those lines, we have some grants and stuff that are out there for those types of things, but obviously for the amount that we would need to house all of our schools with these items would be very costly, so.
I think that this is an important committee. However, I continue to be a little bit frustrated with the lack of support that we have not received. I would request that our Board of Supervisors work with us a little bit closer. Ms. Quintern and myself have discussed bringing forward to the board some different policy items or things that we feel may be appropriate to bring to this type of process and committee. And maybe once we develop that and are able to agree to that here, that we also send out a board letter to other local board divisions, school board members within the surrounding counties and stuff, to see if it's something that they would be willing to also support or provide some type of interest in, some type of support. I think that it's kind of sad that we don't have as much time available to us to get into this further, but I appreciate the issue relative to science. I think safety. I think that's absolutely appropriate to go forward with. I think, in my opinion, I would also like to continue focusing on funding. We have issues relative to our local composite index. We have concerns relative to the negative impact of being a high property value agricultural-based county versus some of the counties north that get additional funding because they're in a high cost area. We still have those issues, and I believe that that's something we need to look forward with. So I appreciate working with Ms. Quintern. I appreciate the opportunity to have these conversations with our legislatures, and I just hope that we can continue to have support. But my big concern right now is timing. I know we have current policies being developed at the state legislature level, and I don't feel like we have been provided the support that I was hoping we would get from both our legislatures and our local County Board of Supervisors to keep going forward. I don't think we have the staffing available to really replace the VSBA policies and stuff of those that have been done before, but I still think this is a great opportunity for us to identify and bring back to our constituents, our board, and to try to at least have these conversations, letting the legislature and others that make these final decisions know what is important in this community.
I think also what's going to be a benefit to us moving forward is once these bills start coming through, we can put them on the table in front of us and discuss, if we have support or don't have support for certain educational bills, and then we can provide that representation to the ones that are going to be voting on those bills. So they have a better idea and context behind, even with our staff and the implications that their votes may have moving forward. I agree with the CPI and the funding. And as far as participation, maybe we could send another letter requesting participation to board members. And then as far as the other school divisions, should we maybe start with those that share our legislators? So Madison, Green, Spotsy, Fredericksburg. We want to start there and see if there's any interest possibly in meeting together.
Yeah, maybe you and I could work on developing a letter to them and bring it back to the board for review and approval. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Oh, may I ask one quick question, Ms. Quintern? The issue with the science and things being developed before the tools or the rules were available for them to follow. Was that one of the things that you had talked with our legislators about at our last meeting, was trying to, maybe not legislation, but it was to see what they could do to resolve that type of an issue so students are not being negatively impacted by legislation or lack of timely implementation and materials?
Yes, that was brought up at the last meeting. And I also think that extending an invitation to the Department of Education, at least having representatives from there, might be of benefit to us because they're the ones that are making these decisions. You know, there's laws that go into place, but then how do we regulate them? It's through the Department of Education, and they're the ones that are presenting new standards of learning and pushing that onto the staff, which now have to play catch up. And if you're buying textbooks and then all of a sudden it changes, well, now what?
Yeah. So it's
all
not
of those
just
things
legislation, it's how we can
snowball.
help the process so that you guys are not negatively impacted, and bottom line, so our students aren't.
And again, for staff that are here as well, please, if you have any ideas or anything that, you know, causes heartburn as far as decisions that are made a little bit farther up the ladder, please send those our way as well, because you all are on the front lines of making those changes, and we're not as well versed clearly as you all. So we would depend heavily on Dr. Hornick and your staff.
Thank you.
That's all, Madam Chair.
That's it. All right. I believe we had, you had discussion as well on the policies DJR, JFCR, and possibly resolution. Would you like to move forward? I do believe, Dr. Hornick, there was an update to one of these. You had gotten information from.
Yes, ma'am. If to remind the board, I know Ms. Anderson, you will know this a little bit more, since the conversation was primarily with you and Micah and myself, and in the spring, we had asked Micah to begin the process of taking a look at DJR. And late last week, I believe it was, last week was a blur, he sent me a draft of DJR to update it and make it current with all the new provisioning of the Virginia Procurement Act. And I will send that, I believe it's a Word document, to the whole board for your review. On a very quick summary, I just called him briefly to get the Cliff Notes because I haven't yet read the entire policy, like regulation technically. But it's pretty clear that it is, over the last 10 years, you know, it seems like cyclically when the Procurement Act is updated, policies are as well. And the way our policy is currently written, without any of the suggested changes, we are already quite a bit more constrained, particularly with the thresholds of purchasing, than where the law requires us, than what the law actually requires. So it might be valuable to balance the current policy as in addition to the suggested revisions, as well as synthesizing that with the policy recommendation that board council has sent forward in order to look at this. So I will send that to you all here this evening. But yes, ma'am, that's the one that we had asked, you know, back late spring for board council to take a look at, and he worked on it through, you know, parts of the summer and was able to send that last week. So that is coming, and I will send that to you all. That's DJ-R.
So with that, Madam Chair, I moved to strike that to next week when we return with the rest of the policies. With regard to the cell phone resolution and draft JFCR, I would move to approve those as presented here.
Is there any comments or questions on, and I'm going to assume, Ms. Harrington, that these two as well, even though these were prior to changing, or just discussion on this one as well?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no voting on that. So
I was
There's
just.
a motion on the table.
Oh, there's
We would need a second and
We're
then
not,
discuss.
no, we're not,
Sorry.
this is not an action item. That's what we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, that policies would be discussed and brought back next week for action.
I was under the assumption that we were just discussing the proposed policy revisions in item 2C.
I think I was,
Because these are the
All
cell phone,
policies.
I mean, the cell phone policy, I think, needs to be pushed
there's already
forward.
current cell phone regulations in place that I believe Mr. Price just said are working pretty effectively, at least at this point. And yeah, I don't believe we've had public comment on these items, so I thought I was I was very specific that all of the policy items. Madam Chair, where are we at in the process? We need a second, or it dies for lack of.
at this point, we can second it and have discussion, and then we can make a motion to postpone it till the following meeting.
So I'll second for the sake of discussion.
So who would like to start? We want to.
Since it's my motion, Madam Chair, I would like to just make one change. Under number 20, communication devices. Students may possess any personal electronic communication device. So adding the word communication between electronic and device.
I'm sorry, are we open for discussion? Is that where we're at?
Yep, that's where we're at.
So I just would say that relative to the amendments made in number 20, I believe that is the only part of the policy that's been amended by the board member. That again, I just don't feel this is necessary. I think that this has been an action taken that did not realize or take the opportunity to find out what was currently being done before this was presented. And so I do believe, again, that there has been regulations that have been developed and distributed to the sites that are sufficient. So in my mind, this would not be, I would not vote for this. So that's my opinion.
Anyone else?
I think it's a good revision. I think it clarifies the expectations. From what I have heard, until this year, we had the policy in place, but the enforcement piece wasn't happening, and I think this gives it a little more strength. But I'm also perfectly willing to delay it until the next meeting so that if the community has further input, we can hear it before we vote.
I'm going to be just brief and targeted with what I'm going to say. We let a gentleman speak about something that happened a week ago, and we're trying to talk about a cell phone policy. Let's just push this one. Let's just push this, and we get to it, and let's show the community we're going to focus on. I don't want to. I feel like we're being a little tone deaf. So.
Jack, to be blunt, in the resolution, it states that the Orange County School Board also understands the need for parents to contact their children for emergencies during the day and expects administrative staff to contact such student during the school day in a reasonable amount of time. So I think it addresses both. I think it addresses the the overuse of unnecessary electronic devices during the day, but it also emphasizes the fact that students may use them in emergencies. That, you know, the resolution also says understands that emergencies may necessitate the use of personal electronic devices and allows for the use at such time. So I think it covers.
I'm not saying that I'm for or against it. I'm saying the 30 to 40 conversations I've had in the last week, no one's asking me about our cell phone policy.
I've had parents ask me about it because they are concerned that their students can't use it in emergencies. And
Sure.
this affirms that, yes, absolutely you can.
We represent the entire school division, but Orange Elementary is in the town of Orange, which is in my district. Trust me, no one's asking me about cell phone policy.
But that's you. So.
Mm-hmm.
Can we call the question?
Absolutely. Finalize their, the question explained would be, we are to postpone these.
Madam Chair, my motion was to approve the draft policy and the resolution, but then I did make the amendment, so I don't know that there's a motion on the, a new motion on the table yet.
Okay, so we need to create a motion, or someone needs to bring forth a motion to postpone the Standards of Student Conduct Code JFC-R draft.
May I ask a question, Laura? Relative to the proper process and rules, since we didn't have a second and then Chelsea amended it, Ms. Quintern amended it.
I thought Darlene seconded.
Oh, she did, that's right, I'm sorry.
I did
You did second it for, I'm sorry, okay. So right now, the still is to approve it tonight, even though
There's no other motion on the table is what I was clarifying.
Because you amended.
Because it was in the right, correct.
So could I then make a motion that we postpone these 3 items to the next meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
I would
So
second that.
All those in favor of postponing?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Now moving on. Now we'll go back to the proposed policy revisions. We will, so just to be clear, these are all discussion items. We would be just either adding additional information or changing wording or, you know, having a discussion about the policy themselves. So we'll start with the AC, the non-discrimination policy. There was only a few updates on that.
Madam Chair, I would move to strike this item from the agenda. I don't believe that Mr. Rickett wants to have conversations regarding policies this evening.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear the
I
last
would
part.
move to strike the policy revisions from the agenda this evening, move it to the next week's,
The whole.
the whole
Okay,
thing.
thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by postponing the policy discussion?
Aye.
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 I'm going to vote no, because I think we've been pushing this down the road, and there's some things here that really need to be aired out. And obviously, I'm the minority right now, but I think it needs to be discussed. We'll discuss it next time.
Thank you.
All right. So any other board member comments or board member or future agenda items?
No, ma'am.
I just had one comment. I want to commend Dr. Hornick for some of his words. I know you guys are getting late. It's getting tired. Let's move this sucker along. So commend him for his comments earlier, but then thank him for his leadership and his team's leadership in a true crisis. yes, gun violence can come to Orange County. It is possible. Our eyes were opened. There is no magic formula. There is no, Dan did a much better job articulating it than I am doing right now. But I do want to assure parents, and I am speaking for the entire board, our number one priority is the safety of your children. That is our number one priority. The relationship, the security plans, everything that happens to ensure your child's safety is happening. The relationship that Dr. Hornick has with the local sheriff's office and the town police is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I just wanted to let our parents of our students know that this is a focus and a priority for us, and we are pushing very, very hard for that continued safety every day. Thank you.
I have just a couple of things. And certainly do agree with you, Mr. Rickett. Thank you for pointing that out, and thank you, Dr. Hornick, and all of the team. This has been a difficult week here in Orange, and we're just thankful that it turned out how it did, and thankful for the steps that are being taken to figure out how to move forward from this and how to make our community understand, how hard we all took it and how we're trying to make it better. And I do sincerely appreciate Dr. Hornick's leadership. And I had a chance to talk to Lawyer Johnson for quite a while on Friday. We ended up being the only two in the vehicle on the drive to Louisa, so we had a lot of conversation time, and his leadership and Caitlin Fakes there and their team just did a wonderful job, and I want to commend them for handling it. I heard several parents say kids came home and had no idea that anything happened. It was all good. That's just a testament to how well they handled a very difficult situation, and I'm thankful for that. These are much more mundane, but I sent an email to the board a week or so ago about Onboard as a potential alternative to board docs. I'd like to put that on an agenda. I don't know if the next time would be good because there's a lot of other, but within the next couple of agendas so that we can talk about setting up a meeting with their representatives. I'd also like to back up several months back. I had Alcinda Hatfield, sorry, about ATI and anti-trafficking curriculum. I'd like to take the next step on that, or look at, I know at the VDOE website there's Not a Number and the Prevention Project are two that are mentioned there. I think in the age we live in, it's another piece of safety and security that we need to do our best to address, so I'd like to bring that back to the front. I know bus stop arm cameras were on the agenda tonight and got shifted. I think Mr. Sarver had some things get in the way, but I did get an email just today from a parent saying, please be talking about this, so that's coming back, I'm assuming. And then I'm interested in an update on our CTE facility status. I know we were doing feasibility studies, but I haven't heard anything recently. I'm getting those questions too. Where do we stand? Is it moving along? What's happening? I'd like to commend our elementary and secondary. Those accreditation reports were just phenomenal. Wonderful to hear what you're doing, so thank you. And I would like to mention, I mentioned it last time, last Thursday night there was a fireside chat with Mrs. Yunkin and Jonathan Haidt about the cell phone piece, and it's available on the VDOE website as a video now, a YouTube video. It takes about an hour. It's a fascinating discussion. It'd be great if we could push that out to our community, and if any of you who are interested in that subject can watch it. It's a very useful hour spent, in my opinion. And lastly, our board retreat has been postponed indefinitely. I think we need to make it an immediate focus. We have a lot to discuss. That's all for me.
I would agree on all of those agenda items. I know I had spoken to a parent this evening, and it was my understanding that we were going to be talking about the stop arm camera, so I do apologize about not having all of the information about tonight's meeting But I do know that that's going to be an area of focus as we're talking about safety and security. With CTE and adding another building to the high school, that's another concern of mine. So I would like to have a robust discussion on moving forward with CTE and having another facility. Also, weapon detectors and staffing. Staffing is going to be another concern that I've heard amongst leaders in our schools. And so I think that it's going to serve us well to have a meeting with our Safe and Secure Committee. And Dr. Hornick, I would like to request to be part of that committee moving forward. I don't know if there's any board members that have ever served on that, but I would have an interest.
That was something I had requested previously too, so thank you. Yeah.
So if we could have a conversation and possibly get some appointments on that committee. And as far as future agenda items, all of the policies will need to be on there, in addition to our letter that Ms. Harrington and I are going to be developing together as far as future participation with other boards and invitations to previously invited members. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Anything else? Good. All right, Ms. Byram. October draft agenda. Obviously, that's going to change.
Yes, that will, I'll make the adjustments to add the policies and things to that. And I believe we approved did we approve the supplemental Okay, so I'll take that off. And this is just a normal, regular meeting. Some of these things on here with recommendations and reports are just placeholders right now in case anything gets added. And then I can't believe we're talking about October and November, but I've included both those calendars there. I'm sure they'll fill up more between now and the next meeting. But just a reminder that our October meeting was moved to the 8th at 7 p.m. We have some student holidays coming up and some professional development and work days for teachers. We have the ASI, which is our Academic Scholar Program, Breakfast and Leadership Conference at 9 o'clock on the 19th at the American Legion Hall. And then we've got this Superintendent's Roundtable on here on the 22nd, and the 2 board meetings for AT, IUMW, and PrEP. And then for November, just the regular. Oh, thank you. And so November, just the student holiday, professional development day on the 5th. The work session is moved up in November to the 18th. And then there's an Ed Foundation board meeting. I'll have to check that because I've got the Wellness Expo on here and that is not correct. So I need to remove that. And then we've got the Thanksgiving holiday, the 27th through the 29th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Moving on to a motion for closed session.
Pursuant to 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, the Orange County School Board will convene a closed meeting for the following: discussion of personnel or the performance of a division employee as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia for resignation, termination, transfer, employment, salary adjustment, and retirement of employees.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. We're in closed session. Yeah, I have closed session. Oh, sorry. Bring us back in. I have closed session certification, please.
Whereas the Orange County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the Orange County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
May I have a second? Ms. Byron, may I have roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Dawson,
Aye.
Ms. Quintern,
Aye.
Ms. Harrington.
Aye.
Sorry, my computer
That's all
went
right.
dead and I don't have Mr. Rickett.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the vote with a 5-0 vote.
Right.
Trying to remember my thing.
Deposition of personnel actions, Dr. Horning?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Recommend the approval of the personnel actions as presented in closed session.
We have a motion.
I move to approve the personnel agenda, including resignation, salary adjustment, transfer and appointment of staff, and extracurricular and coaching appointments.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. And I believe we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah, I used to have one down here for me, and I don't know what happened to it.
Thank you. So, so that goes over there.
So I just gotta order me another cord and bring it and leave it down here.
We definitely have enough plugs to do it.